Marc Rodrigues, a big welcome to Desa Potato Head.
Nice to see you, Joe, again.
Nice to see you too. So, as you know, this wonderful Potato Head village has this unique hospitality and also a wonderful connection with spirituality and well-being and everything else. Today we're going to talk about a different kind of spirit. We've got your baby here, Nusa Cana rum. We're gonna dive deep into how that came to life, what the inspiration was, and before we do that, I'd like to say cheers.
Cheers.
This is one of our cocktails with your rum. I'd love to hear your personal story, Marc.
Mm-hmm.
We've known each other for about 8 or 9 years, but I don't really know what you were doing in this industry or any other industry before that. So please tell us.
So if we go back before I got into this industry, I actually grew up in Perth. So for those of you who know, Perth's arguably the closest Australian city to Bali. So I grew up coming up here a lot, and then continued to do so. So that's all. So Bali's always been in the back of my mind as some place where I've been, where I feel comfortable, where it's nice, and it's ever changing, as you can imagine, over the years. But my path in spirits actually started working for Coca-Cola. So I worked for Coca-Cola for a long time, and then in Australia, Coca-Cola got into spirits, and that was kind of the connection. And I've said this to people: is once you start in the alcohol industry, you never go back. You never go out. So ended up working for the big corporate spirit brands. If you stand and look at a bar, I've worked for a lot of the brands there, and definitely a few of the companies.
Was that in Australia?
All in Australia, yep. And then now 13 years ago, I turned 40. And summited Mount Kilimanjaro on my 40th birthday. So
Nice.
that was something that I didn't really think too much about it, other than that's something that would be pretty cool to do for your 40th. But then that actually had a massive impact on me. I then came back to Australia from that trip, resigned my post at Diageo where I was working, and then kind of set about, I guess, reprogramming me as an individual and as a corporate, as a working industry person. It kind of broke down. I then moved to Hong Kong to kind of really break down some of that programming and insert some new entrepreneurial type programming into what I was doing. So time in Hong Kong, I mean, when I moved there, and the whole time I was there, I used to call it Disneyland for adults. I just thought it was an amazing place to kind of to draw a cut or a change in life, and it certainly did that for me through pushing boundaries in all directions.
So when did you land in Hong Kong?
So I landed in Hong Kong in 2012,
Okay.
kind of 11, 12, and then just did 4 years there. And towards the end is when kind of the time was right to move to Bali and set up the spirit brand now that I have. And the rationale was, when I was in Hong Kong, I was consulting across lots of brands. So before I kind of moved, that's why I talk about the reprogramming, coming out of corporate and then moving into your own business. I had that little half step, which was consulting and doing projects for a lot of brands. So that taught me how to be self-reliant. It taught me how a lot of brands in a short period, in a couple of year kind of window, operate, which in hindsight now kind of great grounding for starting your own spirit business.
Yeah, cool. So as you mentioned, some of the biggest drink companies you were working for internally in that corporate world, Hong Kong was a fresh start for you to go ground zero.
Correct.
And build your own ideas.
Yes.
As mainly as a consultant, but still for some big brands, right?
All big brands.
Yeah.
I worked for Pernod. I worked for all of them. Campari. I worked for William Grant's.
Yeah.
Diageo as well.
For those that don't know, they are the most significant beverage companies, more alcohol beverage companies in the world. Most of what you see on our bars is owned by those 3 or 4 companies.
Yeah, but I think that was critical in terms of, and then that self-independence part. One of the things you can get working in a big corporate is that there's a lot of people around you, and in the startup world, as a lot of people would know, that doesn't exist. So you've got to be so that transition piece, I think, was super important, and that's when I kind of then I thought, then you go back to what I said before about the love of this island and Indonesia, is how do I bring those two things together? And that's where the idea came from. And we talked before, but the initial idea was a rum out of Indonesia. How it was going to happen, I didn't know, but I knew two things: that one, that there would be an opportunity for rum coming out of Southeast Asia, and the second thing was that it would allow me to live on this magnificent island. Okay. So they were the two kind of motivations, and then it got crystallized further when one of my co-founders and co-colleague at Diageo as well, came up, did some research and actually found out, the forgotten story of Indonesian rum. That's a term that's on our bottle and on our advertising, and it's a term that I coined, at that time, is when we found out this forgotten story, that Indonesia has a story and the history in rum.
I love the serendipity of that. So you had this idea. I know that you're great with understanding movements and trends within the drinks industry. I'm guessing you would have paid attention to rum as a category.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you had any other ideas. Were there any other liquid options, any other categories, or was it always rum?
Look again, probably a remnant of my corporate job. One of my passions within corporate was to do category strategy, which is about understanding drinking trends, but not for today, but where they're going, and where consumer trends are going, where retailer trends are going. And the thing with the spirit industry is there's only vodka, tequila, rum, whiskey, gin, really.
It's not a huge amount. Really.
Correct. And so over generations or over lifetimes, there's this adage that kids don't want to drink what their parents drank.
Yeah.
So by nature of that, we get these natural cycles. So 10, 12 years ago, it was the end of vodka and kind of gin was the massive craze. There was gins being launched all over the world. Everyone was talking gin. I then felt that when the gin phase would end, there'd be a tequila mezcal little phase, which ended up happening
in a big way.
And now I think we're on the start of what will be the next kind of horizon, which will be rum.
Yeah.
So that's all well and good from the commercial standpoint. Rum, it had to be rum because it had to be Indonesia, it had to be Bali, it had to be holidays. I did once say to myself, when you used to work 48 weeks a year to have 4 weeks holiday, I used to say, why don't I try to find a way that I can live where people holiday and holiday where people live? Uh-huh. So I achieved that. Nice. But part of being on holiday is the type of drinks you drink when you're on holiday. They're generally big, long pineapple, rum, coconut kind of things.
Tropical.
Yeah, so that's how it worked out.
I think we need to zone into something that moment where you and your partners went, hang on, Indonesia already has some kind of heritage with the spirit we want to be making.
Yeah,
tell us more about that.
So the story goes, and the facts go, that when people may be aware that Indonesia was a Dutch colony, when the Dutch first arrived here, the Chinese had been in Java, particularly, for hundreds of years prior. Chinese have known how to distill spirits for thousands of years. When they arrived in Indonesia, they saw the sugar cane, which was naturally growing. They distilled that into a spirit. Between them and the Dutch, they called it Batavian Arak. And at this stage is when the world was going crazy for the spices of nutmeg and clove coming out of the Banda Islands. So on these, and it's a funny story. When I tell the story, I always tell people, if you go back 400 years or 500 years ago, if I had a handful of nutmeg and clove and a handful of gold,
it'd be rich.
The nutmeg and clove was worth more than the gold. And like now where countries go to fight for oil, the European countries were warring over nutmeg and clove. So part of this fight and the quest to gain these islands in Indonesia, this spirit, this liquid, was also being taken around the world. So 400 years ago, it was arguably the world's first global spirit. So when we heard that, and that's when I talked about bringing back the forgotten story of Indonesian rum, I thought to myself, okay, this is a story worth telling. Most of the spirit brands we all know and love have a history and a story. Most new brands don't have a history and a story. So here was an opportunity to start a new brand that had a history and a story worth telling. And that was the light bulb moment for me, was that we can actually do something here that can actually change the landscape. We can actually, if you go to any bar in the world, predominantly the spirits, the whiskies come from Scotland, the vodkas come from Eastern Europe or Russia, the bourbons are from America, the tequilas from Mexico, and the rums are from the Caribbean. So here is an opportunity to do something different, something new. And so our vision is to take Indonesian rum to the world. And to do that, we want to take a bit of Bali lifestyle to the world. And so I knew then that I had the ability to put a team together to actually bring this thing to life. The skills that I'd gained prior, married with the idea and then my vision to take this to the world, it kind of became a task that had to be done. And that's the way I look at it. I look at it as that Indonesia and particularly Bali has given a lot to people from other parts of the world. I think this is something that I, through my background, can give back to Bali and Indonesia by taking Indonesian rum to the world.
Nice, that's wonderful to hear. I'd like to talk in a bit more detail about some of the aspects you just mentioned, because I find it fascinating, and since trying the rum for the first time and understanding the brand, and for myself because I like to read about the history of drinks, I've investigated more. So also just to explain to the audience who may not be aware, arak is a term that we hear. It's an Arabic word. It means a distilled spirit, or to distill. So you hear about arak all over Asia, and then towards Europe. Within Indonesia alone, we have a plethora of different araks. On Bali alone, we have arak tuak from coconut. We have rice arak. We have sugarcane arak. But this terminology that was given to this liquid here, the Batavian arak, Batavia came. It was an area in Holland. When they arrived, they nicknamed that area Batavia. They discovered lots of things being distilled, and one of those was some kind of rudimentary sugarcane spirit, which really is a rum, if you like, but it was being called Batavian arak. When you speak to other rum connoisseurs and historians, they talk about the Caribbean as being the home, the origins of rum, but the same thing was happening in this part of the world at the same time.
And prior, because sugarcane, and this is something that I only knew at the time, was sugarcane is actually indigenous to Southeast Asia. So the fact that there is sugarcane in the Caribbean is because it came from here. So we talk about that sugarcane was made thanks to the Chinese and the Indonesians into a spirit shipped around the world as Batavian arak before the French termed the word rum, R-H-U-M. So it's a case of the world has been told that sugarcane, Caribbean, rum, that's the start of it. We're on the job to kind of go, no, hang on. There's another story that never got told because it never had a voice. Because, as I said, it kind of happened alongside this explosion of nutmeg and clove, which is a whole other story why we do a spice rum as well. But under the guise of nutmeg and clove and Indonesia and colonization and the whole bit, that story got forgotten. And so one of the things that it's a very hard thing that we're trying to do, which is take rum from what now is a new part of the world and go up against some massive brands. When you think rum, it's just Bacardi.
Yeah.
And we're taking on Bacardi everywhere we are. We're successful where we've gone deep. We've got a couple of markets that we're in front of Bacardi.
Wow.
But we have to tell that new story. And the thing that we've got, the two things that we've got that resonate really well is our liquid tastes, well, it's rum as it should be. And the second thing is this island of Bali, and the fact that the rest of the world, as an Australian, I've known Bali since I was a child, but the rest of the world is just waking up to this place. So we've got this old story about Java and the Dutch and Dutch ships and war and all that. But then we've got this front end of the brand, which we hope you see in our label, which is all about the lifestyle of this island and the culture, the way people feel when they come here, the way that people enjoy themselves. It's beaches, it's jungles, it's waterfalls, it's islands, it's all of that.
Yeah, I like picking up on kind of actual facts or getting reading a story and finding something that makes sense. And you mentioned earlier that the Chinese who came over migrated to probably work on the sugarcane fields, help with harvesting and farming, possibly brought over a Chinese style of distillation. So it's relatively common knowledge that there's a very basic still called the Mongolian still, clay pot distillation. We know that came from that part of the world.
Yeah.
The Chinese would have picked up on that and brought that over. Interestingly, also with a kind of signature Batavian Arak style, is that during fermentation, to work as a catalyst to trigger
the red
rice was added.
Yeah, it's the red rice. So basically what the Chinese did was take what was around them.
Yeah.
Sugarcane growing everywhere. And then how do we get the fermentation started? Well, red rice growing everywhere.
Yeah.
Put the two things together. I mentioned before that our white rum, particularly, or even the Godfather, which is the 100% Batavian Arak, is sugarcane in a glass. It's because of the other distinctive feature. So you have the sugarcane around, you have the red rice around. The other distinctive feature is the wood that exists.
Yeah.
The jati, or in Australia
teak
we
wood.
call it teak, or in WA we call it jarrah.
Yeah.
It's all the same thing, but it's a very hard wood.
Yeah.
So when you store your spirit in this hard wood, you get no transference like you would get in an oak barrel or
bourbon barrel
or anything like that. So what you end up, no matter how long it sits in said wood or jati, you end up with sugarcane in a glass.
Yeah. It's a very soft mellowing technique.
Correct.
So lots of great factors there. More facts that come with Batavian Arak that I found, because I've got a pretty decent collection of old cocktail books, and one of the first ones I was given was the Fine Art of Mixing Drinks by David Embry. I think he wrote that in the 1940s, 50s, and some really old school cocktails are mentioned there. Punch recipes using Arak. It was a significant cocktail ingredient.
Correct.
80 years ago, but then got forgotten about.
Yeah, and that's because of the flavour, the taste profile, the flavour, and also just the exclusiveness of it. If you can imagine, as I said, parts of we just launched in the US last month, and every time I'm over there and I say that people I live in Bali, it's like, oh my God, it's this beautiful island, the other side of the world. Can you imagine what that was like 80 years ago, right? So I think it was the premium nature of it, the taste profile of it, all in the above just made it, what we say, arguably the world's first global luxury spirit.
And this is another nice point. You mentioned this premium aspect to it. You rewind even more to the late 1800s, and Arak was being produced in huge amounts, and was considered more luxury than some of the finest brandies of the world. You know, the cognacs, the armagnacs, some of the well-known aged rums. Indonesian Batavian Arak was considered, you know, the classy azul tequila of that time.
And that's what's allowing us to do what we're doing. You know, we're in 16 countries now. It's calling on that to those people like yourself who care about that. We can call on that backstory and that history. For those that just want to throw a drink in a big colourful glass and have a party, well then we call on the lifestyle and the fun that Bali offers. So we feel as though we've got a lot of bases covered there, and even those people that just want a cool bottle pulled out of the rail, you know, with a barong mask on it, after a while they go to our website, they go and they find out a little bit more, and they go, oh, okay, there's more to this.
Yeah,
there's more to this. And that's kind of why, you know, everything we're talking about is why 8 years ago I went, we've got to do this. You just have to do this. And if anyone's going to do it, I've got the passion for this country and this island. I've got the skill set, and I can put the team together to do it.
Yeah. Well, I have to say big thanks for bringing it to us. I remember when you first came here, I think it was 2016. I was then in charge of the beverage program and creating cocktails, and through Ronald's vision of supporting community and making a positive impact and using local ingredients and indigenous flavors from the land, that was my mission. And I was very lucky being able to access a lot of the wonderful baking spices, rich spices that you mentioned. As a bartender, this was like ingredient heaven. But there wasn't a big selection of good quality alcohol that we could get our hands on. And I mean, not just internally and locally, but from the global library of spirits. In Bali, we just don't have a lot of product coming in, and there's high duty, etc. So trying this, I was excited. But then, I have to say the liquid is really good. The job that's been done in orchestrating the different liquids that go inside it has been fantastic, and it is now our choice of rum at Potato Head and featured in a lot of cocktails. So that was the starting point, and I think we should probably taste and talk a little bit more about this, and then just also you mentioned it quickly. The spiced version, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah. So the range is. So when we launched, I'll give you. When we launched, what we didn't want to do is, because you remember our vision is to take this to everyone, to make this all over the world. Thank you. So what we didn't want it to be was the Batavian Arak or the Indonesian rum that sits on the back corner on its own in the Indonesian rum section and never gets used, but it gathers dust in a bar. So what we did is we took Batavian Arak Indonesian rum and we blended it with a little bit of Caribbean rum. And what that did is that made our history, our story accessible to today, meant every bar in the world can have it in its rail and making great mojitos and daiquiris and tropical drinks. But we always when we used to sell and promote the brand, we'd always carry a little bit of the 100% with us.
In a little
bottle, and we'd go like, this is the 100%, cheers. This is the 100% Batavian Arak. And people go, oh, that's delicious, that's so different.
Yeah.
But I can't just make a mojito or a daiquiri with it. So that's why we used to carry it. And then a couple of years ago, I was at a trade show in London doing the same thing with a little unbranded bottle, and everyone wanted to have a taste of it. And I think just as the rum category started to get going, more people started to know about what was going on. People were saying, can we buy it? So last year we've done a small run off the Godfather, the 100% Batavian Arak, and now we all around the world we arm our salespeople with it in a branded bottle, so you can buy it to really tell the story. And then when you're out and about in
Bali, just at duty free, right?
For now. So this is it's few months away. As you talked about the legislative process here, it will be available here in coming months.
Yeah, it certainly, I can understand how bartenders would be eager to try this, and it helps you tell the story too.
Helps tell the story.
Simply by smelling it and tasting it, you understand how this Batavian Arak is so different.
Yeah.
I think it's quite earthy and funky, and you've got this young sugarcane note,
Correct.
and there are these tropical notes, coconut.
Yep.
None of that is added. It's just
there.
The expression, and that is the backbone and heart and soul of Nusa Cana, and it makes so much sense. So I'm glad that has come to fruition, and I know that, you know, especially in Indonesia, if you want to start something new, a new product, there's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of challenges. I would imagine with alcohol, even more so. I
mean, it's difficult. I often say this to you. I've got friends doing other things in other industries, and I just say, yeah, anytime you're dealing with alcohol, even if you're just moving it let alone from one country to another, sometimes from one city to another, sometimes from one side of Bali to another, there's paperwork involved because governments like to clip the ticket on every bit of alcohol sold. So that certainly has had its challenges and has had its growth curve for us. You know, I have days where I'm out in venues and pouring drinks and having a good time and sharing stories, and then I have days of sitting in front of a computer all day on spreadsheets. It's the joy of an international rum business and multiple time zones and the whole bit that goes with that. But yeah, we're super, like as I said, is that, you know, our new, so for the last 2 years, the Mediterranean's been our playground. Outside Indonesia's our home. This is our strongest market. You know, we're very gracious of the support we get here in Indonesia, particularly here on Bali. You know, bartenders here and our sales team here. One thing I always say is that here they sell with their heart and not their wallets and not their heads. Yeah. So when we've been very honoured that the support we've had here in Indonesia, and that's given us the ability now to go out aggressively and complete our vision to take it to the world. So when we decided to tackle Europe coming out of COVID, the first market we went to was Greece. Why? Because it's islands. Yeah. It's people have holidays. There's a lot of mojitos. There's a lot of daiquiris. There's a lot of beach clubs, and you know, we're coming into our third full summer in Greece, and you know, we're the number 3 rum brand in Greece. And Indonesian rum is the number 3 rum brand in Greece. So, you know, it's a bit surreal that, you know, that some of the biggest beach clubs in the Med, you know, we're talking Tropicana in Mykonos, we're talking, you know, all the big ones there, house pour and Indonesian rum, and that's the trigger of motivation, and that's, you know, that's what I hope drives bartenders here and our sales team here in Indonesia, is that, hang on, this is an Indonesian brand selling out to the world, as opposed to them pouring a Captain Morgan, a Bacardi, a Jack Daniels or something here in Asia. So that's the kind of driver. And then, as I said, last month, the US, we launched in Miami first. Again, why? Beach, party, holidays. Palm trees. We're going to Southern California next. And just, you know, the joy when I go out there, and our sales team, when they go out there, telling them about Indonesia and Bali and that story, and that, you know, the people here and the bar community here. And what a very interesting thing is, we've got an opportunity to get on a couple of cruise ships out of Miami, and I got an email just this morning really positive around that. And the reason that came about is that most of the bartenders on the cruise ships coming out of Miami are all Indonesian, a lot of Balinese guys, and so again, another opportunity to sell with heart rather than with head. I'm going to talk about, you know, we haven't got a load of time left, but we want to talk about a couple of recipes in a second. To your right, in the back of the studio, you've got Nusa Cana spiced rum. It made
a lot of sense. I think
Yeah.
that was that the number 2?
That was our second SKU, and so the story behind that is that we talked about the spice islands of the Banda Islands here in Indonesia. Indonesia brought nutmeg clove to the world. So it brought
and coffee
and chocolate. It brought flavour to the world. And spice rum is nothing new. It's nothing innovative. But most of the spice rums that exist are vanilla and sugar, not even
tastes like candy.
Not really spice. So we said, well, if there's going to be a spice rum category, we should be in it, and we should actually drag it up and actually talk about our spices. So we've got the old spices of nutmeg, clove, and ginger, and then we've added pineapple, chocolate, and coffee to again kind of take something old and historic and make it modern and new. So, you know, when people taste that, I mean, you can give your view, but the way I explain, I just go, it's just delicious. It's just tasty. It's just something that's flavorful. It tastes like you can have a conversation straight after a sip.
Yeah. The ingredients come across in an authentic way, and aren't masked by heaps and heaps of sugar, which often happens with a lot of flavored spirits in general.
Yeah,
you know, they ramp up the sugar content, and that's not the way to go. So after that, you've got the coconut too. Between that, we did, like I said, talked about Greece. We've got a massive business in Greece now, which we're very humbled that we have that, and gracious we have that. But again, our Greek customers went, can we have a dark rum so we don't have to buy the other company's dark rum? So we launched a dark rum in Greece last summer. That's now going out to the world as we speak. And then here, you know, I want something. I kind of felt a bit bad that originated out of Europe as originated out of here. So we've kicked off coconut out of Indonesia. So kind of makes sense. So we've got a coconut rum now that just makes a fantastic pina colada, makes a great daiquiri. That's the one that we've just done some mini bottles that we're putting into hotel rooms. That's the one that everyone can just pick up, grab any juice, any mixer, and away you go and have some fun with it. Congrats. So for me, I want to make a point. If this is my first interview in this wonderful space, my background is drinks, so that's my forte. If I get the chance to do this again, it's going to be drink focused, but in my mind, it's only ever going to be with brands and products that I can seriously be passionate or proud about. So, you know, it's not me just going, hey, welcome today, love your product. I think it's a fantastic range you have. I said I wanted to perhaps share some recipes. A go-to rum drink is a daiquiri. That's the way to sometimes see if the bartender knows how to
judge a bartender,
balance a drink. That sounds a bit cheeky, but also maybe test yourself as well. Like how can you combine rum, sugar, and lime, and just fine tune those three flavors, and that would be one to try with Nusa Cana Tropical Island Rum, or the other two as well. But any of your kind of favorite rum drinks, switch out what you'd normally go for with Nusa Cana, and you'll see there's a significant difference. Otherwise come to Potato Head and try one of our many Nusa Cana drinks. And then just to finish off, because I've seen you kind of working away on this, and this also, you know, anything new, not just a new flavor, but a new size, a new packaging in Indonesia needs to be registered, certified. The BPOM has to be approved. It's a long process. And I know behind the scenes you've been working for some kind of eco pack. What is that?
Well, you're right. So and then I'm also building a home in Bali at the moment, which everything has long timelines here in Bali, and they generally get pushed out. But I'm pleased to announce that literally today we're filling our new pack, which sounds crazy, but it's a 25 litre pack of our serve of our white rum. And the rationale behind that is over the last 2 or 3 years, we've been growing so fast here. again, thanks to the team selling with heart. And we have some very big partners here who, Potato Head being one, there's several others who literally go through hundreds of our bottles a month.
Yeah.
And when I say hundreds, I'm talking 600 to 1,000 bottles a month. Now, being a small operator, our supply chain is pretty small too. So we can literally fill our liquid into a glass bottle on a Monday, have it sent to Potato Head on a Wednesday,
and it's empty,
and have it Wednesday night finished.
Yeah.
So that just seemed a ridiculous use of glass packaging, filling. So we went and created a 25 litre.
Wow. What is that?
So it's a container. For those you can see, it's a container very similar to people who live here or anyone who has the bottled water, the big 25 litre water. It's like that. But the beauty of it is that each one of those is 36 bottles. So just for Potato Head here alone, we'll save 8 tons of glass a year.
Incredible.
And when you think about that, 8 tons of glass is it's a room way bigger than this full of glass. So that kicks off today. All our kind of big customers are going to switch to it. I think it helps everyone. It's less. It's a smaller truck on the road, so it's the equivalent of 3 cases or 36 bottles.
Is there? It's just in my mind, it's like, okay, is the liquid the same price, or do you get a discount?
Well,
doing it in that
so
way,
the motivation for doing this was to where the idea came from. One of our customers, Savaya, down in Uluwatu, they had a big party, like as they do, and the bar manager from there one night, at the end of the night, opened the storeroom door, snapped a picture of a room about this size, and the entire floor was full of glass bottles.
Yeah.
And he said, "What do you want us to do with these?" And I just went, "Okay, well, to start with, I'll come and collect them and recycle them as a starting point." And then that led me to, well, why do we even have them?
Yeah.
So the motivation was just to eliminate the glass, make life easy for all our customers. So all the savings that we've got from not having a glass bottle for literally a week, we've just eliminated from the cost. So it kicks a goal from saving glass, from efficiency on logistics, as I said, just carrying it around, and then it's cost effective, right? So everyone makes a little bit more money.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah,
that's been brilliant. Thank you so
much,
much, Mark. And I'd love to see what happens in the next few years with this brand, and I'm seeing it in different countries all over the world. So yeah, any new countries that are. As I
said, the US is a big one for us. The one before was Dubai, and again, these are just iconic markets. And it's when we post pictures of that. The feedback we get on our feed from Indonesian, particularly bartenders, is just immense pride. So that's the motivating factor to keep going and pushing this on and completing our vision, which is to take a little bit of Bali life to the world, and in doing so, putting Indonesian rum where it should be on the bars of the world.
Awesome. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Thank you
very much.